Every Breath You Take by J.T. Lawrence. The guard pushes the convict forward. This prison block is noisy, the kind of noise that coats your brain and stuffs up your nose. There's no escaping it. Men talk testosterone, tin cups clanging on iron bars, a payphone receiver being smashed against the chafed venom green box. Someone laughs. Someone shuffles a deck of cards. Someone groans in pain or pleasure. Sometimes it's difficult to tell which. The guard and the convict walk down the long passage, past the second-story cells, past the hands with dirty, bruised fingernails waving from the locked stalls. The guard is bristling with weapons and duty gear. Flashlight, mag pouch, swivel holder with radio, pepper spray, handcuffs hooked into its single-snap strap. His gun, of course, and a badge wallet that carries flattering photos of his 2 snotty children at home. He carries his baton in his hand, the stop nestled in his damp armpit. The prison guard doesn't walk around here without at least one weapon ready to use, whether the cons are locked in or not. He's seen the damage they can do firsthand and won't take the chance. As he jokes with his wife, he's already ugly enough without getting his face rearranged. Maybe it will be an improvement, his wife always retorts, but she doesn't mean it. She's got a sense of humor. She has to, he guesses, to survive being married to him. They reach the end of the corridor and he presses the button on the wall. His gaze flickers over the prisoner's handcuffs, just to make sure they're still on. A uniformed man in a small glass box beyond looks up at them and buzzes the lock, and they nod at him and walk through, and downstairs, towards the interview room. "I fantasize about moments like this, you know," says the convict, while they are alone in the stairwell. "Shut up, Stedler." "Really, I do. I lie awake and—" "I said, shut your mouth, prisoner," says the guard, "or I'll shut it for you." The interview room is clean and quiet, an island of calm deep inside the churning nest that is the rest of the prison. The guard shoves the con towards the chair. "Sit." "Why, thank you," Stedler says. "I believe I will." The chair scrapes the floor, fingernails on a chalkboard. The prisoner shakes his silver cuffs at the guard. "Can you take these off?" The guard ignores him. "I want to make a good impression," says Stedler. "No," says the guard. "No, you won't take them off, or no, it's impossible for me to make a good impression?" "Both." "You have a real gift for conversation, you know that, Gerber. You're a regular raconteur." "It was her condition," says the guard. "A what now?" "The reason you have to keep the cuffs on. It was one of her conditions for visiting you." Michael Stedler chokes on a short, bitter laugh. It's not like I would hurt her. Why would I hurt her? That would be really stupid." "Yeah, well, what can I say?" says Gerber. "She knows what you're in here for." On cue, there is a gentle knock on the half-ajar door. "Gentlemen," she says. She's exceptionally beautiful with her chestnut skin and shining eyes, coal-lined lids and glossy hair recently cut. She's a welcome sight after a double shift. The guard's nose twitches. He can smell her hand cream, coconut, and something else. Anxiety. Stedler shoots up. "You're even more beautiful than your profile picture." Suhana Valhab takes a deep breath and moves to the other side of the room. She places her dictaphone on the table, as well as her notebook and a cheap ballpoint pen. "You've seen my profile picture?" she asks. "You've been doing your homework?" Stedler laughs. "Yes." "Well," says Suhana, "I have too." She's not laughing. I guess that's what makes you so good at your job," he says. "And how would you know that I'm good at my job?" He scratches his cheek. "You've won awards, right?" "Some." "You've been promoted 3 times in 5 years. They say you'll be the chief editor at the National Trib in no time." "I doubt it. It's a desk job. I wouldn't be able to do a desk job." "Ah," says Michael. "You like the action?" "If that's what you call this." What would you call it? They both sit down, and the guard relaxes his grip on his baton, allows his muscles to loosen up. You tell me, says Suhana. You're the one who's been calling me 5 times a day for a month. 6 weeks. You're the one who's been harassing me. So you tell me, Mr. Stedler. You tell me what it is we're doing here. Isn't it obvious? He asks. In my job, it pays not to jump to conclusions. That's good. I like that. So what are you so intent on getting from me? Stedler stretches his arms and then places his hands on his head. I'm sensing some hostility. Damn right, I'm hostile. But aren't you supposed to be, cool? Cool? Professional, he says, impartial. They glare at each other for a moment. Look, the prisoner says, I'm not sure this is going to work. If you already have a problem with me, I don't think the article will come out right. What did you expect? You imagined I'd come in here and be, what, friendly to you? I don't see why not. You could at least be polite. Polite? To a murderer? Attempted. It was attempted murder. Suhana stares him down. This is really not going how I planned. I will not be manipulated by a narcissistic creep like you. Now hold on a minute. Look at me, she says, and waits for him to do so. I am not a supporting actor in your sick reality. Got it? I've got it. I've got it. Now, she says, opening her notebook and scraping it flat on the table. Let's begin. 6 months earlier. The lecturer tells the punchline of his Kubrick-Spielberg joke and the hall rings with laughter. The bell sounds and the students pack their bags. Ugh, Kubrick's my least favourite director in the syllabus, says the blonde girl sitting a seat away from Michael. She stands up and slings her bag over her shoulder, ready to leave. He says. What? Asks the girl. Do you, get his work? Michael's cheeks flush. Perspiration prickles his skin. Her arms fall to her sides. Please tell me you like his work and that you can explain him to me? Her eyes are wide, blue, clear. Eyes to drown in, thinks Michael. Well, he says. Yes? Her eyes grow wider still. Yes? I'm a bit of a fan, he says. Obsessed would be more accurate, but he doesn't want to come across as a weirdo. I have all his films, and a projector. You can borrow my external drive if you like. Oh my God, thank you. Or, he says, heart thrumming, if you like, we can watch them together, and I'll talk you through them. Really? You'd do that for me? Her face is a beacon. He looks down at the floor. I wouldn't mind. I'm Jessica, she says. I know, he thinks. They exchange numbers and walk out together. Jessica sighs in relief. Oh my goodness, how lucky am I? Sorry? Out of all these students, I chose to sit next to you. No, you didn't, he thinks. I'm the one who found you. Present day. So you met in university, says Suhana. Film school. She constantly takes notes. Her rushed scribbling pen on page is like a persistent whisper in the room. It was perfect, Stedler says. He looks smug, as if he's lying in a hammock somewhere on a tropical island instead of here at a dented metal table in handcuffs. So Miss Sears just happened to sit next to you in that class? Well, says Mike and laughs, not quite. You engineered it. You make it sound so cold, calculated. Suhana chews on the back of her pen. Michael imagines the inner tube bursting and black ink bleeding onto the journalist's lips and tongue, pictures a stream of it running down her chin. How did you do it? She asks. I overheard her in an earlier lecture. So you were following her before? Not following her. I would sit behind her in class. I liked watching the back of her head. You liked the back of her head? He laughs again. Obviously, I like the front of her head better, but I didn't want to freak her out. I stayed under the radar until you were ready to make contact. I overheard her talking to a friend, Sam, about how she was dreading the Kubrick assignment, how she didn't get him and avoided watching his films, and now she was behind and was worried that she wouldn't be able to catch up. So you downloaded all his movies? No, I really did have all his films on my drive. But you made sure you sat next to her in that particular class, the Kubrick class. He rubs at a dirty mark on the knee of his orange overalls. Yes. God, says the journalist. My blood just ran cold. Michael looks up at her. Well, it worked, didn't it? So you coached her. You watched movies together. Yes. We started with Kubrick and then moved on to Hitchcock and Scorsese, Tim Burton, Woody Allen. It wasn't just Kubrick they needed help with. They? Jess and her friend Sam. Sam was convenient to have around. How so? It meant that I could spend long, glorious hours with Jessica without it getting weird. Weird? You know, awkward. It removed the romantic aspect from your time together. For her. And for you? I was in love with her before she even knew I existed. 6 months earlier. I'm so glad we're here, bubbles Jessica. I've been waiting for this movie to come up for ages. Hey, Mike, says Sam. Do you want popcorn? No, thank you. Jessica laughs. Mike hates popcorn. Hates popcorn? Says Sam. Who hates popcorn? You're weird, Mike. What can I say? It's not the first time I've been called weird. It's because he's a movie snob, says Jessica. The popcorn thing? He can't stand it when he's trying to focus on the narrative arc of a film and everyone around him is crunching on corn right in his ear. It's like no one even thinks about it. They just order it automatically, and then they eat it automatically, like robots or zombies. Popcorn zombies, says Michael, and Jessica laughs out loud. Finally, he says. Jessica looks at him. What? He gazes at her for a split second too long. Finally, I found a woman who understands me. Present day. So you were pretending to tutor them? No, says Mike, shaking his head. I really was tutoring them. But actually, it was a guise to spend time with Miss Sears. I thought if we spent enough time together, she'd see that we were meant to be together. She'd see that we were the perfect pair, a couple of swans. Do you know that swans mate for life? Suhana ignores his question. You thought she'd fall in love with you? Yes. That's how it goes, you know. The tropes for a romance film. Guy meets girl. Guy and girl fall in love. There's a bit of conflict to get through, but then they always end up together. Usually at an airport where he has to run to catch her before it's too late. And then there's the HEA. HEA? Happily ever after. It's not a true romance if there's no happy ending. In Hollywood, maybe, but Jessica didn't return your feelings. It was discouraging sometimes, but I knew if I just kept going, she would see the light of my love. If you kept going? You know, Mike shrugs. If I kept at it, kept helping her, kept wooing her, kept charming her. You thought you were charming? I can be charming. I was always on my best behavior with her. Says Suhana, writing in her book. What? Did your best behavior include, you know, what happened in the end? That was different. Why? That wasn't me. I mean, that's not what I'm usually like. Suhana shakes her head. I disagree. I think that person you were, in the end, that was the real you. The charming thing is just a mask. No. That person who abducted Miss Sears, who tried to kill her, I think that is the real Michael Stedler. No, that's not true. I'm a good guy. I'm usually a good guy. That's what stalkers always say. That's what psychopaths say. They think they're normal. Because they can't see the menace in their behavior. They can't see it for what it really is. I'm not a psychopath. I have empathy. I know right from wrong. Do you? I know it was wrong, what I did to Jess. Let me guess. You never meant to hurt her, says Suhana. He gives her a pointed look. She's not playing along. Suhana taps her page. You're wasting my time. What do you want me to say? I'm being honest. Are you? They stare at each other over the grey table. Let's skip the bullshit. Let's get to the real story, the real bloody beating heart of it. Michael sits back, looks down at wrists where the cuffs have rasped his skin. When did it start to go wrong? Stedler scratches his cheek again. I replay it over and over in my head it's like watching dailies. Dailies? What do you mean? It's like when you're watching your daily film rushes, what you got that day, uncut, unedited, take after take after take of the same scene, identical, apart from the most subtle differences. Then, if you're not happy with it, you can reshoot the next day, but life isn't like that, says Suhana. Stedler gazes at her. I guess this prison would be empty if life was like that. 6 months earlier. Put that camera away, Mike, says Jessica, swatting at him. She's sitting at her dormitory desk going over her study notes, and the soundtrack to a Kubrick film is playing in the background. Not until you give me what I want, he says. What? Just look into the camera. I just need a glance. Jessica glares at him. There we go. Got it. You're so bloody beautiful. You're my leading lady. Cut it out, Mike. I'm being serious. Switch that camera off. Michael puts the camera down, but it's still recording. There. It's down. I've put it down. I wish you wouldn't do that, says Jessica. I hate it. But you're so... Jess, you're so beautiful. We need to share it with the world. What? Shut up. I mean it. Annoyed, she frowns at her watch. Where's Sam? She's late. We need to start. Sam's not coming. Yes, she is. She's not, says Mike. I texted her earlier. I told her we're meeting tomorrow instead of today. Present day. So you told her how you felt about her, says Suhana. It was a mistake. But she knew, anyway. Yeah, I guess she did. It was like I was on fire inside when I was near her. She must have felt that. The furnace of my desire. Felt something. You made a pass at her, and she said she didn't want to see you anymore. Yes, but you were still in the same class. It was a good excuse to bump into her. How did she react? Cold shoulder. She didn't kick up a fuss? Not in class. Not in the beginning. But when I couldn't get her to look at me in class, I had to get creative. You started following her around campus. Don't say it like that. Don't say it like I was a lovesick puppy. Weren't you? You make me sound pathetic. Yes, I would follow her. I'd sit at the table next to hers in the canteen and watch her eat. Why? Why? Because I was in love with her. Suhana puts down her pen and crosses her arms. Mr. Stedler, what do you think love is? It's impossible to put into words. Try. He sighs and kicks the legs of his chair with the heel of his boot. I had this feeling, like I could never be complete without her, like there was no point in living if I couldn't have her. Like at one pole, there is Jessica and light and happiness, and at the other pole there is just nothing. Darkness, depression, a vacuum where my heart should be. I wanted to wake up with her and cook breakfast for her, spoil her, hold her. They were good, noble feelings. I wanted to care for her, not harm her. But you did. Harm her? Are you in denial about that? No, but it was never my intention. All I really want to do is take care of her. It's just unfortunate how things worked out. Suhana reaches forward and grabs 2 bottles of water. She twists off the cap and gives one to Stedler. I want to go back to your definition of love. Michael gulps the water down. What's the point? I'm still trying to understand what happened. Thank you. I'm sure you're thirsty. I mean, for trying to understand. I'm not a monster, you know, despite what everyone has been saying. What has everyone been saying? That I'm a psycho, a murderer. I'm not. Yes? Things just got out of hand, spiraled out of control. But you did try to kill her. Stedler puts the empty bottle on the table. He doesn't answer. I can see that you haven't accepted it yet. Accepted what you have done. I have. You still think that you're a good guy. I am. Suhana laughs bitterly. You don't get it, he says. Why don't you explain it to me? Isn't that why we're here? It's like this. I was in love with Jessica, right? Yes. Full-blown, over-the-top, mad, intense, obsessional love, right? Suhana blinks at him. Right. So, think of it this way. If she felt the same way, if she returned my feelings, then we would have this amazingly beautiful thing, right? Obsessional love is celebrated the world over. Romeo and Juliet, Tristan and Isolde, Brangelina. It's the ultimate human experience. Yes, says Suhana, picking up her pen again. It's this beautiful thing, right? Yes, but hear me out. So love is seen as this wonderful thing, but only when it is returned. That doesn't make any sense. It's not fair. How so? As soon as love is unrequited, it is all of a sudden transformed into something bad, something shameful. All right, says the journalist. So you understand? I understand what you're saying. I get your point. It's valid. Stedler slams the table with his fists, making her and the prison guard jump. Thank you, he says. And I understand how you need to see yourself as a good guy, even when I'm sitting here in handcuffs. Yes, says Suhana. Look, it's not like I don't understand what I did was wrong. But you keep making excuses for your behavior. Well, there were circumstances that complicated the situation. Suhana taps her fingers on the table. You mean the restraining order? 6 months earlier. The university security guard grips Stedler's arm and knocks on the head of arts department's office door. Hi, Prof, he says. A handsome woman wearing bifocals on the tip of her nose looks up at them. Oh, she says. What have we here? Stedler, says the guard. She pauses to think. Who? Michael Stedler, the one with the restraining order? Mike's mouth hangs open. What? What restraining order? Bullshit! I showed him the university suspension letter, but he wouldn't leave. Tried to run for it. You can't suspend me, he says. I haven't done anything wrong. The professor searches her desk for a piece of paper. Have you been harassing a fellow student? Of course not. Okay, let's put it this way. Have you been sending Miss Sears flowers, love letters, hiding the letters in her personal belongings? Yes. Since when are flowers and love letters cause for being kicked out of university? Have you been phoning and texting her repeatedly? Yes. She stops searching her desk and looks up at him. Yes? That's what friends do. Do friends also follow each other around, even off campus? That was a coincidence. Really? The film. I bumped into Jessica at the cinema. We're both film students. It's the cinema closest to campus. It's bound to happen. And you just happened to sit in the seat right behind her in this film? Stedler stares at her, mouth clamped shut. I know it wasn't a coincidence, Mr. Stedler, because it wasn't the first time you did it. Sears reported that you had done the same thing on 2 separate occasions prior to this incident. She can't go to the cinema anymore. This is far from ideal. As you said, she's a film student. It's not like I was doing anything to her. I was just there to watch the movies. I'm allowed to, you know. The last time I checked, this was a free country. I have rights. Jessica can't go to the cinema anymore. She can't go to class. She can't even eat lunch on campus because you're always there, watching her. Of course I'm here. It's my university too. What would you have me do, skip class? That's exactly what I need you to do. Hence the suspension, which will be in place for as long as the restraining order is valid. She finds it and holds it up to him. My advice to you is to move on, quickly. Move on? Leave my life behind? She's just overreacting. No, Mr. Stedler, the professor says, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. I don't think she is. Present day. So, says Suhana, you got kicked out of varsity. Suspended, till further notice. You think it was worth it? What? Your one-sided love affair. Was it worth losing everything you'd worked for at school? It says in my file that you were the top student in the whole arts department for 3 years running. It would have been worth it, if it had worked. If what had worked? If we had gotten together, then everything would have been more than worth it. You're a very determined person. Yes, I have focus, determination. It's supposed to be a good thing. It was always a good thing until I met Jessica. Do you know why I can tell you right now that she isn't the right person for you? Why? Because when you're in love, in a healthy, robust relationship, you bring out the best in one another. While I think that Sears brought out the worst in you. That's difficult to hear, because it's true. I mean, all light has a shadow. Can you explain that? I mean, she's like all light, so there are bound to be shadows. I'm not sure I follow. Are you the shadow? Only when I'm around her. 5 months earlier. Michael's face is tinted blue from the screen in front of him. His finger clicks on his mouse automatically, as if it's a separate robotic part of his body. The curtains are closed and the room is dark. He rewinds and plays while he edits his film. Jessica looks more beautiful than ever. Put that camera away, Mike. Put that camera away. Not until you give me what I want. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. You're my leading lady. Put that camera away, Mike. You're my leading lady. You're a really good guy. I'm very fond of you, Mike. You're a really good guy. I'm very fond of you. I'm not attracted to you in that way. I'm attracted to you in that way. The doorbell rings, snapping Michael out of his trance. It rings twice more before he gets to the front door. When he opens it, the sunlight burns his eyes. He sees a police uniform. Michael Stedler. Michael frowns. Yes? We need to have a word. You're cops? Looks like we've got a clever one. His name badge says Tebe. I just don't understand why you're here. Well, we'll explain it to you, says the other one, Moletzi. Stedler hesitates. Don't worry, says Tebe. We'll talk slowly. The officers push past him and he follows them into his lounge. You're going to tell me why you're here? I think you know why we're here. Michael's face starts to sweat. I didn't go near her, if that's why. Really? Asks Tebe. Really? Moletze steps forward. We have a witness who says she saw you across the road from where Miss Sears was having coffee with her friend. You were filming her again. A witness? The friend. The friend is the witness. Samantha Brodke. Well, says Michael, I wasn't breaking the law. I wasn't within 50 meters of her. Tebe looks around the lounge. Very clever, hey? Moletzi nods. Do you know what they do with clever people in prison? Michael snorts with laughter. Prison? You laugh, Wenna, but I know your type. Really? Says Stedler. What's that? Rich, white, educated. Arrogant, chips in Moletze. You think you're out of reach of the law, but you're not. I didn't break the law, says Michael. You almost broke the law. We're here to tell you that we're watching you. We've got our eyes on you, Stedler, says Moletse. Consider this a friendly warning. Tebe doesn't take his eyes off Michael. A pretty whitey like you, in prison. They won't almost break you. Present day. The prison guard eyes Suhana. He's had enough of Stedler's voice and wants to go home to his family. She looks at her watch and sees she has 10 minutes left of the interview. Why did you keep filming her? She asks. She was my leading lady. You were making a film about her? I've made a film about her. You know, that's just another form of harassment, filming people without their consent. When I couldn't have Jessica, and I couldn't go to class, the film became my project. I became obsessed with it, obsessed with making it beautiful. Something like that, says Suhana, stolen from someone, can never be beautiful. I spent hundreds of hours on it, cutting and layering and adding sound. I worked on it every waking moment till it was perfect, until it was absolutely perfect. And then something happened. Jessica dropped out of class and left the country, says Stedler. How did you know? Tumblr. She was tagged in a photo at the airport. It was a British Airways counter. I guessed that she was flying to the UK. She had a big suitcase, bigger than a holiday suitcase. That's a lot of information from one shot. In film school, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. We're trained to dissect visuals. In a really tight film, there are no extraneous details. Everything in the frame is there for a reason. Everything in that photo, the BA logo, the bag, the clothes she was wearing, they all told me one thing. What was that? That I needed to get to her. 4 months earlier, Donegal, Ireland. Mike runs past an electric green hedge and shops with old clay roof tiles. The fading pink light tints the buildings with a romantic blush, and the copper fixtures turn to gold. He sees his reflection in his peripheral vision in the shiny glass shop fronts. There are a handful of pedestrians, a couple of cars, but it's quiet enough, and Jessica is so close he can smell her. He reaches her and touches the soft padding of her jacket. Jessica, he says. She spins around, shocked, as if his hand had carried an electric current. No, she says, frowning. It can't be. Michael laughs. I tracked you down. It wasn't easy. You covered your tracks well, but I refused to give up. Jessica looks around, ready to scream for help, but he wasn't doing anything to her, wasn't threatening her. How? I'll tell you everything over coffee. Let's go in here. His hard grip burns her elbow. He tries to steer her into the cafe. Mike, she says, trying to find the right words. I have a restraining order against you. I'm not angry about that. I've forgiven you. Anyway, things have changed. She wrenches her arm away from him. Nothing has changed. He looks up and down the street and then directly into her eyes. They used to make him think of the ocean, but now the wide blue irises irritate him. Don't cause a fuss again. I flew all the way out here to talk to you. I am here to get away from you, she shouts at him. I left my whole life behind to get rid of you. This is our airport scene, says Michael, gesturing at the setting sun and the lush trees. And it's perfect. Jess starts walking away from him, but he grabs her arm again. She cries out. A pedestrian in a brown suit walks past but doesn't stop. Jess, he says, his jaw muscles tight with tension. It's time for our happy ending. Jessica takes off, but Michael grabs her and shoves her into a side alley. The wall is dark with lichen and damp. She starts to scream for help, but he forces his hand over her mouth and whispers into her ear. Don't scream. Don't scream. Be quiet. Jess, just be quiet. She stops flailing and screaming, but she can't stop the terrified moans that force their way out of her. Michael directs her along the shop alleyway and takes her phone out from her jacket pocket. Now I told you, I have something to show you. I came all the way here to show this to you. The least you can do is watch it with me. Michael wrestles her towards his hired car and opens the back door. Jessica fights, spraying fine gravel as she tries to kick him, tries to break his grip. She bites down on his hand and he snaps, slamming her into the side of the car. While she is stunned, he pushes her onto the back seat, zips a cable tie around her wrists, and slams the door, then jumps into the driver's seat and locks all the doors. There is silence in the confined space, apart from their heavy breathing. Stedler brings his hand up to look at it and sees it's bleeding, then frowns at her in the rearview mirror. I can't believe I have you in my car. It's like I'm dreaming. You have no idea how happy you have just made me. Jessica blows her hair out of her face. What are you going to do to me? Michael starts the car. Jessica notices paraphernalia on the floor. Cable ties, rope, video camera. What are all these things for? What are they? Oh, don't worry about those things. We won't need them if you don't do anything silly. He puts the car into reverse and backs out of the bay. You'll see, there's really nothing to worry about. Michael clicks play on the car's sound system. It's the Kubrick soundtrack from the day in her dorm when she swatted him away. You see, he says, I've planned every last detail. I've even made a playlist for you. It's full of our songs. Jessica can't help the tears. They stream down her cheeks. Hey, he says gently, don't be upset. Please don't cry. I'm going to take such good care of you. They pull up to a small cabin in the forest, which glows against the pines painted black by the night. Michael throws Jessica over his shoulder and carries her up the path. Just before they reach the door, he stops and takes a deep breath of the forest air. I won't tell anyone what you've done, says Jessica. Just let me go, and no one has to know anything. No, my love, he says. It's too late for that. Jessica whimpers softly. Michael opens the cabin door and puts her down inside, locking the door behind them. You see, he says, it's perfect. Our own private cinema. Jessica looks around for windows wide enough to squeeze through. There are none. I brought my projector, he says, and my own cotton bed sheet from home, because you never know, do you? I mean, you never know what colour the sheets will be in a small cabin in an Irish forest. What will we watch? Isn't it obvious? Jessica gulps and shakes her head. Spilt mascara patterns her cheeks. We'll watch my film, he says. My film about us. Michael walks to the kitchen and struggles to open a drawer. He pulls out a large knife and brings it over to Jessica, then cuts her cable tie off with it and pushes her down onto the couch. He places the knife on the side table and picks up the projector remote, presses play. After the title sequence plays out, the establishing shot shocks Jessica. That's my bedroom, she says. Yes. How did you get that shot? What do you mean? You were there? In my bedroom? How did you... You know me. How dedicated I am. It wasn't ideal. I mean, the angle, as you can see, but I made it work. It cuts to Jessica under a tree. Jessica eating lunch with a friend. Jessica in class. There are jump cuts to close-ups of her face, her eyes begging him to stop. You hear her edited voiceover. Mike, you're a really good guy. I'm very fond of you. Mike, I'm attracted to you, in that way. Jessica shoots up. I can't watch this. What? Why? It's beautiful, and I made it for you. She roars and tears down the cotton sheet, kicks the projector over so that it crashes and breaks on the floor. Hey! Michael shouts at her. Stop that! Stop! She slams his laptop shut, picks it up, and throws it at him as hard as she can. He dodges it and it explodes on the floor. I hate it! She shouts. You hear me? I hate your film! You don't. You don't mean that. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Don't say that. It's disgusting. You disgust me. Stedler lashes out, punching her to keep her quiet. She reels backwards but doesn't fall. Her hands fly up to her face and come away bloody. We will never be together. You understand? Never! Michael launches his whole body at her, slamming her into the ground. Her head cracks on the floor and the world starts to look grey. Her hair is immediately wet with shining crimson. She sticks her fingers into his eyes and he yells, then she bucks him off her and lunges for the knife. Her fingers are slippery with blood, but she manages to grab it. She can feel herself losing consciousness, but forces herself to stay awake even though it feels like all her blood has drained out of her. Michael slams into her again, but this time she turns towards him just in time, and he uses his own strength to impale himself on the knife she's holding in front of her heart. He gurgles and falls onto the cold stone cabin floor, and Jessica loses consciousness and collapses down next to him, into his widely splayed arms. A police car siren sounds in the distance. Present day. Michael opens his prison overalls and lifts his white shirt beneath it. The scar is still fresh, and it repulses Suhana. "How did they find you?" she asks. He drops his shirt. "As soon as I grabbed her in town, Jess pressed her panic button on her phone. It was in her jacket pocket." "How does that work?" "It's just an app. If you're in trouble, you hit a button on the phone and it sends a message to the local authorities. Then they can track your movements." "Clever." Stedler puts his fists on the table. If I had just taken her phone earlier." The journalist narrows her eyes at him. "Did you hear what you just said?" "What?" "Surely, Stedler." She laughs despite the seriousness of the situation. "Surely, if you have one regret, it's not that you didn't take her phone earlier." "Oh, I know what you mean." "Do you?" "Yeah. My regret should be that I took her in the first place. Or that I even met her in the first place." "That's why I think you're really not sorry at all." "Of course I'm sorry," he says. "You're not sorry for what you've done. You're only sorry you got caught. What you still don't understand is that Jessica Sears is the love of my life." Suhana sighs and drums her fingers on her knee. "Don't you see that it's impossible for me to regret having met her?" he says. "You wouldn't change being in here, sitting here with handcuffs on?" "Not if it meant never having met her. This is real love. Real love is not brittle. It doesn't break under pressure." The prison guard uncrosses his arms and pointedly looks at his watch. Suhana nods at him. "So, why am I here, then?" Stedler laughs. It's an ugly sound. "You thought that I asked you here to express my regret to the public? To issue a message of unconditional apology? To say that I've seen the error of my ways?" "Yes, I did. That's why I came." He laughs again. "No." Something clicks in Suhana's head. "I'm not going to give Miss Sears any kind of message for you, if that's what you're trying to do." "That's not why I asked you to come," he says. "Okay, people," says the guard. "Time's up. Visiting hour's over." Suhana gathers her things and stands up, scraping her chair. The sound scratches at her frayed nerves. Michael jumps up. "Wait." The prison guard takes a step forward, one hand towards Stedler, one hand hovering over his beretta. "You sit down, prisoner. But you sit down." Stedler lowers himself into his chair, desperation sponging the blood from his face. "Please," he says. "Make it quick, Stedler. You've wasted enough of my time." Suhana grips her notebook in her clammy hand. "I wanted to promote the film," he says. She glares at him. "You what?" "I thought Jess and I could spend a romantic weekend in the cabin together while the world thought that I had kidnapped her. I'd upload the video and, well, with that kind of coverage, everyone would watch the film." "While the world thought you had kidnapped her?" "Yes. I was going to tell her the plan that day, but then she started to run away." Suhana takes a step towards the door. "That's where you come in," he says. "Because of the complications. I wasn't able to share the link to the film on my website, and I don't have online privileges here." "You're not serious." "All I need you to do is share the link." He hands her a scrap of paper with a URL printed neatly on it. "I'm sure it'll go viral in no time." Suhana folds the scrap of paper into her notebook and closes it, and presses stop on her dictaphone. The guard opens the door for her, and she walks out of the interview room. He watches her for a moment, angry that she's been manipulated, but then he sees her drop the notebook into a wire mesh bin, half full with used polystyrene cups and chip packets, and keep walking. The guard smirks and hoists the prisoner up from out of his chair. He'll walk Stedler back to his cell, and that will be the end of his double shift. He's looking forward to getting home to his wife and kids. He feels the photo of them pulse in his badge wallet. He'll be able to report to his wife that he got through one more day of not having his face rearranged. And if she's in a good mood, she'll laugh. The end.